Yo, what up? This is My Name is Jump.
Yo, it's Kairos on the BC Underground Hip Hop Podcast.
BC Underground Hip Hop.
BC Underground Hip Hop Podcast.
Along with your host,
my man's Lil Bukkit.
Lil Bukkit, what's up?
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Lil Bukkit, and I'm back with the BC Underground Hip Hop Podcast. Y'all know we got a little bit of beef going on back and forth in the forum. We just had details on. We decided we should get a little bit of the story from PJ, figure out some of his opinions on the disses, and just kind of touch base. So without further ado, you want to introduce yourself, let everybody that doesn't know yet where to get a hold of you on socials. And
What's good? Thank you. My name is JML. You can find me on Instagram at JML84K. You can find me on SoundCloud, JML, Spotify, anywhere you can listen to music pretty much.
That's what's up. Now, yesterday we had details on the podcast. He had quite a lot to say about the diss tracks back and forth, and also he had quite a bit of praise to say about you, Young Prince.
Yeah.
So let's hear it. What do you got?
I don't know. Like, is there anywhere you wanted to start? Like, first of all, like, shout out.
Let's start off with, You do your shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Details and your whole team that was like involved in the whole process. I don't know everyone that was involved, but it looks like, from what I gathered, like Klaus is the video guy, and I think Steve is the guy that was doing the beats, and I can't remember who did the graphics for this one, but I feel like
Designs.
YD, I've heard of him too. Like, shout out to everyone involved in the whole process. Like, this was a fun one, and it was cool to see people, really get interested in the new face that really brought a good challenge to the table.
Yeah, definitely, it was a good challenge.
Yeah,
he had some hard bars in that track. What did you think of his first track to Lil Coke?
You know what? I don't know. I kind of thought the whole thing was
Bring your mic a
little
little closer to your mouth.
out of my mouth. I don't know. I thought the whole thing was a little bit kind of mid. I don't know. Like, it wasn't my cup of tea personally, but I get bored by those flows. I don't really listen to a lot of like traditional rap anymore. It's not the kind of stuff I'm interested in. I spent a lot of time listening to it, and it's just kind of gotten boring to me. So, as far as the bars go, solid. All the bars were solid, and it was packed a good punch that way. But in terms of replayability, he made a comment on his appearance on the podcast about only listening to something once and not really rocking with it. And, I tend to agree with that. I can respect the objective quality of something, but once it gets into subjective territory in music, that's where I kind of lose the interest in those tracks.
Yeah, no, they do. They kind of meld together. It almost sounds like anything you would have heard from the 90s.
Yeah, and that's first of all, it's before my time, and I can appreciate where things came from, but I get bored looking back. I appreciate the old school stuff, and I have a lot of it in my playlist, but it's not something I necessarily look for inspiration from or anything like that.
Something you're doing Discover Weekly on Spotify.
No.
Now, let me know a little bit about what made your decision to diss Details and get involved in this.
I just like to compete. Like, I don't really, there was something that he had mentioned throughout, and I think his whole team was really picking on the entire time, was about the quality and the quality of the engineering, and that I wasn't taking my time and that I wasn't putting professional effort into this. The reality is about this whole situation is it's not an offensive, thing to me. Like, I've done this 3 times now, with multiple different people that have had things to say about me. And, I go to bed just the same as I wake up. It doesn't weigh on me or anything like that. And I don't really expect a lot of the things that I say to weigh on people. If they do, that means I just really did my job well. But, I based on watching Details talk, and I have a lot of respect for him and listening to the things that he had to say, I don't think he goes to sleep thinking about this either. I think he's treating it just as I do. And, it was a fun experience that way. That being said, we're at different stages in our career, but at the same time, we're kind of in similar positions. We're still both local artists. We're still both trying to figure out a way to break through, but my timeline is a lot longer than his is. And I think that's something that he recognizes as well. So the reality is you don't have the luxury of doing things the way that I do. You have to put professional quality behind the things that you do when you're at that stage of your career, because it's really easy for people to dismiss you as just some other old guy that's, trying to get his opportunity that he never had. And whether that's how you feel about yourself or how you don't feel about yourself isn't up to me to decide. But that's just how I look at it. When I put things out on the internet, something like this, I'm not a rapper. I'm not trying to market myself at this. This is me trying to drum up attention for myself in any way that I can, and it works, and it's a proven method for me.
Yeah.
And I've demonstrated that I don't need to put professional quality behind my stuff for people to recognize the ability that I'm doing when I'm doing this stuff for fun. They go listen to my music and they recognize that I can do the professional quality stuff. But let's be real here. I'm not spending any money on this. I'm not, I'm doing all this stuff out of my room. This is fun for me. I'm not taking this the same level of serious because I don't have to. This isn't, if he loses in this and gets knocked by a 20 something, it's a bad look. But if he looks competitive through the professional quality stuff that he has to do to look competitive, and that's no disrespect, that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, no, it's a better look than having, just some tracks that he would have thrown out on SoundCloud to compete with and think, that's going to look good on his
Exactly. Exactly. That's what it means. And, kudos to him. He did a very well executed thing, and he did it twice, and he made it clickable, and he made, he did all the right things to drum up attention. But I'm going to do a lot of fight analogies during this podcast because he did a lot of them in his, and I think it's a really good way to resonate. So he made the Conor McGregor comment. I kind of am that personality in this group. When I come to fight, when I show up to do one of these things, people come out to watch, whether they want to see me lose or whether they want to see me win. Regardless, when I show up to fight, people come to watch, and that remains to be seen with him. So if he's smart, he'll capitalize on a little bit of attention that he got out of this and try and make some new fans out of it and show off some of the good music that he has in the vault that he says he does. But it's really easy to lose attention and do it very quickly. And it's not a slight on Turtle, but he had a lot of attention after our rounds. And I think there might've been some better releases that he could have come with right after that to capitalize instead of the track that he had just recently released. Not to say that he didn't sound good on it. I think he just had better options.
I think he had a lot better options too. Turtle, he was also really caught up in that tour that he did, right?
Yeah, and I think that
I think he was on tour when you guys were going back and forth, right?
No, it was right after. It was right after that, and I think that also plays a part in it.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, he capitalized on the attention. Who am I to say release a better track after the internet when you just went on tour? Who knows? You might have capitalized and made so many more fans out of that opportunity than you would have ever made from a track. So I try and not look in other people's lanes too much. I focus on my own, and that's why I try and avoid taking advice too much. I listen to everything people have to say, but the reality is I've made it as far as I have in such a short amount of time by listening to myself and taking my own gut instincts and managing my own career path.
Yeah.
And I don't really intend to stop doing that.
Now, what do you have to say for details with him saying he's not gonna come back if there is a response or anything like that? He's
I don't really care. I don't really care. It's okay. As long as you're not being dismissive of me, and I don't think he is, but I don't think it's really up to the person involved to decide if they won a fight, and the thing is every time you get into a fight with me, you can say you won as much as you want. But I guarantee you, I made you bleed throughout the process. You can say that a lot of my shots didn't hit, but I didn't have to do a whole lot of research to go digging into the fact, and I don't know too much about you, but I can make a whole lot of comments about a whole lot of things that I know are accurate and are accurate, and I'm not going to go air it out for you. They hit home, and they and I've demonstrated that I do that with everyone that I go go toe to toe with, whether it's a super personal thing or whether it's just a little thing that hurts your feelings, like the playlist thing with Spotify, with Frankie, sorry. Second of all, I don't owe you anything. If you decide to spend money on me to go to war with me or go to fight with me, that's on you. I ripped the thing from your website because I thought it was a funny thing to declare yourself the island king. So I wanted to demonstrate, I make memes. When you fight with me, you don't just fight on tracks. So I don't really care that you think that it's bad etiquette to drop 2 tracks in a row. I will admit that it was a fault of my own to say that I appeared unsatisfied with my first release, because that's not how I wanted that to come off. What that meant was I picked the delivery that I liked, that I wasn't sure about. I still resonated with every word I said in that track, and there wasn't any lack of confidence in the things I said. I dropped 2 tracks in a row on multiple people before. It's a strategy that I've shown to use. If you didn't do your research to know that that was something I'm going to do, then that's on you. And that was all on Facebook. You don't have to dig deep to find that. That's in the group for you. The other piece in line with that as well, sorry, is, he said he had my home address in his second track, and he dropped the Google Maps thing like he was trying to dox me. You should fact check before you do those things, because that's when you appear to say things that are incorrect, and you leave room for me to point them out. Because details, you think I live at the post office. So, I don't know how long you've been spending on the internet, but you should know that young guys like me are smart enough to have alternate addresses to use or things to say, because if we're about to engage in a battle, why am I going to willingly give you information? Like, I'm not that dumb. You know what I mean? So, and then that's the other challenge that you run into when you play with someone that's been doing this with people in the group for a long time, is that you run out of ammunition to use because other people have said things before. So if you don't say things in a creative way, the opportunity to hurt me with the low-hanging fruit gets smaller and smaller every time we do this. Because either A, I learn how to react to it before you get a chance to say it, or B, someone said it before and you didn't say it in a way that hits home. Turtle made a great example of that when he said that silver spoon goon line. If you wanted, like, that was a really creative way to make the comment that I don't appear like I have any kind of, negative aspect, any street cred or anything like that. And you can believe whatever you want with that. I'm not about to incriminate myself on a podcast. I'm not that stupid, nor am I going to incriminate myself on a record to the point that I'm going to have to back myself up. That being said, you don't know my life the way that I know my life. So whether things hurt is up to me to decide. And it's not really up to you to decide. The same way that it's not up to me to decide if something I said hurt you. It's up to you to live with it.
That's true.
No, go on.
What do you think about Lil Coke getting involved now? Because you said I'm sure you heard the diss track that he's got dropping for Details.
Yeah, I did. I actually got the preview of it, and I actually kind of like it. But
I think it's a dope track.
It's my kind of music, right? Like I enjoy it, and it's I don't want to give away too much because I don't want to ruin the surprise for when it comes out. I heard Details say that he wasn't intending on listening to it. I would either way, even if you don't intend to respond, just because personally, as you say as an old person, you have a lot to teach and that you're here to educate. But the reality is you're on the same level as a lot of us. You can't really big brother any of us. And at its core, at the local level, this is still a young man's game. So I respect that you have experiences and that you have things to teach, but you do need to understand that there's a lot that you need to be learning from us, because this is not your culture anymore. The 40-year-olds aren't driving the record sales. It's streaming based now. It's YouTube based. It's Instagram based. You got to watch what we're doing and learn from us to figure out how to market yourself, because the 90s method isn't going to work. You took a 10-year break. So much has changed. In
social media.
I have 2 buddies out here that you've never even heard of that are bigger in Brazil than you will ever be in this country. And they're making more revenue off of their streams than they don't even have to leave the house anymore. So, it's, I like I said, I do not disrespect anything that someone older than me has to say, but I've, I'm a little bit edgy on this subject because I deal with it in my work life and finance as a high performing advisor, which I'd like to also say I was recently able to quit my job because I'm able to make the income off of music now to continue myself going. But as a high performing advisor in that environment, when you're a young person, people don't give you the respect that they stop thinking that they have things to learn from you and that all they can do is teach. And so it's a bit of a touchy subject for me in the music world when I have so much background in theory and traditional music, and, not trying to come from an avenue where I'm trying to tell people that they have, that I'm gospel and all this thing, but, that I don't feel like sometimes I get that level of respect back as someone who does have things, even if it's unrefined. You know what I mean?
The one thing I'd like to point out is that like you were extremely talented with music, and a lot of people have recognized that.
I do get that. I do get that.
Like just through the battle rap, like the diss track season that we've had.
Yeah.
It's become so apparent that, you're clearly on the path to get where you need to go to be really, really successful in music.
And I really do appreciate that. And I'm not trying to say this as like a pushback.
No, you're very humble about it. And that's one thing I'd like to point out too. You're super humble about it. I think that's great.
Thank you. It's I've always surrounded myself with people that, I just, I'm trying to find the way to say this, but I don't want to like be around people that just, gas me up all the time, every day. I don't like that. I don't like yes men. I hate people that just sit in the studio with me and say, this is a banger track. You know what I mean? I don't want that. I like the negativity, but at the same time, I do want the criticism. I want the respect as well that comes with that. It's, you can't just dismiss me as, yeah, you're good, but you
got lots to learn.
It's a big world out there for you, young man. Like it's, we're peers. It is what it is. Still, at the same time, I get that there's the age gap and that there's life experience to learn. But if I've been doing this 10 years and you've been doing this 10 years, we're still peers.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what are your plans for this diss track season? Are you going to be taking a break from it, or do you think you're going to come back in with some more shit?
I've well, the details one is pretty much done. I don't really have anything to say there.
But yeah, anymore. That's over with.
That's done. But I've, after 3 rounds of this, and I think we counted them the other day, it's like 12 people or something like that I've gone back and forth with in a total of 3 weeks. And that's not to mention that there's some of those people that was like 3 tracks or 2 tracks each or something along those lines, right? So yeah. I think I just don't want to turn into a novelty act that gets trotted out whenever someone wants attention.
I feel you.
You know what I mean? So for me, if this is going to happen again, someone either has to figure out a way to really annoy me and really piss me off, or do something different. You know what I mean? Details kind of took that route.
Yeah, I think it would have been really cool to see if like you and Lil Coke had a back and forth because of his style of music and your style of music. I think you would have been able to come with a little more of a new age flavor on your diss tracks, and that would be really cool to see.
Yeah, you know what? And see, that's the thing, is that's what I appreciated about listening to Lil Coke's track. And like I said, I'm not going to give anything away, but I think the only way someone's going to be able, and that's when I say the innovative or the new thing, is the only way someone's really going to get me to come back out, if they're not going to piss me off, is it needs to be a different kind of opponent. You know what I mean? I don't want, it's fun to do the bars and stuff like that, but I'd like to demonstrate that it's possible to outdo someone without necessarily having to go for the jugular the entire time.
Yeah, outdo them creatively.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I feel like whenever I get into it with the rappers like Mo Dirt and Details and Turtle, and Turtle's not really a rapper, but you know, he stepped into that.
He did go that route.
That was the expectation that we had set at that point. But you know, I'll use Lil Coke as the example for this, even though that's not necessarily the person that it would be. If he's interested in doing a little bit of a thing like that, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't think that's what he's looking to do. You know, I watched that Rich the Kid versus Lil Uzi beef, I think it was.
Yeah.
And, you know, they both dropped 2 tracks, and I swear, like across a 3-minute track from each of them, they only really dropped 2 super personal lines about each other. But it was like a flex track almost the entire time. It was still like a I'm better than you track, but it was like they were talking about themselves the entire time. And so they really got to focus on the musicality and show how creative they were while still sounding somewhat aggressive.
Yeah.
If you're curious about it, the tracks are Dead Friends and the Who Run It freestyle by Uzi. And then Offset actually did a diss about Uzi on a track called The Violation freestyle, which is very similar premise. So if I was going to do something like that, I'd really like to do something like that, because I really do like to experiment with the trap kind of music, but I never tend to get to release it in my own discography. Yeah. So, you know,
you're more of like a R&B almost type of singer.
Oh, dude, I'm a fucking pop star. I don't want to be a rapper. Like, I have zero interest in being a clout lord, and I have zero interest in being respected for having like the greatest bars or being the greatest rapper ever. My whole goal in this is to make quality music that is friendly to as big an audience as possible, that puts me to the biggest, like at its core, it's a business. I don't really, you know, I do the music for the artists in these kind of avenues. This is where I show off my super artistry, but in my like actual music, not to say that I'm trying to make something watered down, but I'm trying to do something that's bigger than this.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it has more reach. It definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you know, it's surprising that you don't see a lot more people trying to take that avenue, because it's almost like this lane is watered down, because there's so many Canadian dudes that want to be known for having the bars. They want to be Mercules.
Well, I think it depends what you're exposed to, right? Because like in the BCUG group specifically, in this kind of like ecosystem of rappers, those are the people we talk about, right? In BCUG, we're talking about Young Stitch, we're talking about Mercules, we're talking about Junk, we're talking about Snack, we're talking about all these guys that are rappers. And that's why Rob brought me in the first place, is because he wanted me to kind of steer some of the conversation towards some of the newer guys that are coming up that have maybe a different sound in Canada, so we can open up those doors. But like if you were to go to the Signal, or, you know, I'm part of this Joe Budden podcast group where they talk about guys like West Side Gun and you know, Slaughterhouse and Royce da 5'9". And not to say those guys don't pop up in BCUG, but it's a different system of idols, right? And so you're really surrounded by whatever you're exposed to what you're surrounded by. And I think there is a lot of people in that lane, but there's an equal amount of people in the other lanes. Like if you were to look at the Vancouver headquarters page on Instagram, for example, you're going to find like 50 or 60 different Trippie Redd, Lil Uzi, Young Thug deviations of some sort.
The Low Files media page that's going on, they've got their own lane of kind of like newer pop star kind of rappers that are popping out. And I
don't even really, I wouldn't consider them pop star rappers necessarily. I think it's its own subgenre itself, but
you know what I mean, what I'm trying to say.
I do. Yeah. But that's kind of what I was getting at with the of my own music, with the bigger picture, is like you listen to a song like Childish or like Real or something like that I put out on my Spotify, and I would challenge you to point to anyone in this province, at least, for sure. I can't really speak to Canada as a whole because I haven't really looked on the other local scenes at that level, but I would challenge you to find someone that is making music like that, that is still marketing themselves to the hip hop lane. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's definitely unique. Not a lot of people are going the creative way with their music, but you can see it's kind of catching on in Canada.
Yeah, I hope it does.
in the States, that's what is really, blowing up most.
Well, and that's where I get a lot of plays these days too.
Yeah. The Bluefaces and, the Snitch Nines, even though they get a lot of hate, they get so much more love than they do get for the hate for all the shit.
Yeah. And it's because they're not necessarily focusing entirely on the music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Excuse me. You can listen to a couple 6ix9ine songs and a couple Blueface songs, and if you're a high quality engineer, or if you're someone that's surrounded by audio engineering and musicians all the time, there's a lot of flaws in their music. Like even as like a mid tier, I don't even consider myself mid tier. I still think I have a lot to learn on the engineering side of things. But even me, there's a lot of things that I can point out to in a couple 6ix9ine songs specifically, where it's like, wow, that kick is like really trash, or like the vocals sound like they're like too far away or stuff like that. Like, and I'm sure you can be picky with everyone's mix to some extent, but I think that's the benefit of pump stuff out. The cycle is so short these days anyways, that if you fuck up, people forget about it. And if it's
the flaws don't really shine through, because the masses, they see you doing the innovative stuff, and that kind of overshadows it.
They just want to hear the fucking song and move on to the next one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's really the machine. It's just churning out unbelievable rates these days. I remember when the freshman thing started kind of coming around, people were looking at these rappers like they were going to blow up and become, mainstream artists.
Yeah.
But where's the freshman from 2014?
Yeah, there's not a whole, I think there's only like 2 or 3 of them from every class list that really pop.
And they really do. Like Blueface was a freshman and he popped.
Yeah. But he popped before he was a freshman, I think.
Yeah, he was getting some. He did that, what's it called? Like mopping fucking the mess up or some shit.
Oh, I Bleed It or something like that?
Bleed It. That one, when he's fucking sitting there with the mop in the video.
Dropping it.
He fucking killed that track. But
facts.
The thing is, like, he's got potential with his innovative shit, because he doesn't just go and try and hit every snare when he's rhyming. And he says, what he says is also really unique, and not like he doesn't use the same vocabulary as a lot of people do.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I watched, and that's why I say it's a young man's game. You listen to the slang and it changes almost every 3 to 4 years, just depending on who's popping at the time. You know what I mean?
Like the Atlanta scene right now with Slime.
Like, I mean, exactly. And you've got DaBaby now, and like you got a lot of people saying jit. And that was a word that was super popular way back, but now it's having a resurgence because someone has made it the designated vocabulary. In Canada, there's the whole trend about people talking like Rono guys, you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
and like, let me hold a 20 sack. Like,
Bucket. Where do you think I got Lil Bukkit from?
Exactly, right? So, you really have to be able to stay in tune with that. It's hard to be a trend hopper. It really is. It's kind of like, if I'm going to make a finance analogy, it's like being a day trader versus being a long-term investor. You can either pick your horse and really commit to that horse and ride it out over the long term, or you can try and hop on what's hot and hope you don't fuck up and end up in the red holding the bag for a little while until that trend comes back.
Because that does happen.
It does. And like, you look at a guy like Tyga.
Yeah.
Tyga fell off for a while, but somehow it's like he started clinging to life again.
He's had this huge resurgence of features this year.
Exactly. And not even features. Some of them are like solo songs. Like, I remember when Tyga first came out, he dropped like Rack City, Faded, and like
and it was
2 or 3. They had massive remixes and everything. Rack City was like one of the biggest songs of that like 2 or 3 year period.
Yeah.
And it was like right when the Young Money thing was popping off. And then it was like he started dating the Kardashians or something, or Black China or something like that. And it was like, dumpster. And I want to say it was when he was beefing with Lil Durk that it really started, because I remember those Chirac tracks were coming out and there was some back and forth between the two of them, and he kind of started getting exposed for some dumb shit.
Yeah.
But then now
Lil Durk's no one to fuck with.
Well, no, exactly. And so, like last year, then you hear that, or maybe it was 2 years ago now, you hear that song with Offset come out, Taste, and then he does Swish, and then he does another one that pops. And then I think now he even has a song with Blueface.
Yeah, he does.
And it's like, so it's like, damn, dude, you're back from the dead. But that was the product of someone riding a cycle really well and then fucking up for a couple of years and then finding their horse again for a little bit.
That's
but
true,
he didn't commit. He didn't commit to a style over that 10-year period. He tried to find something new that worked.
And he found it.
Yeah. And it remains to be seen if he's going to stick around.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on for that this season?
Yeah, I actually do. I made a couple notes just to make sure I didn't forget. And this is the last one I really wanted to touch on because it kind of goes to that young generation versus old generation comment again. Something really kind of spoke to me in what Details was saying about, young people not following through in the same mistakes and not wanting to listen to a bunch of people that are talking about fucking their life up. I personally don't agree with that. And I don't really see the difference in listening to someone talk about actively fucking their life up versus someone talking about fucking their life up in retrospect. I think at the same time, it's the same stories, but the reality is that we talk about what we go through and we talk about what we see on a daily basis. So I'm a young person. I'm surrounded by a lot of young guys that are either just starting to get involved with drugs, whether they're doing them or whether they're selling them, or, whether they're just starting to get involved in gang violence, whether they're just getting their first jobs, whether they just lost their first girlfriend, their parents just died, or they just, a whole litany of shit that people are just experiencing for the very first time. It's a very raw experience to not only go through yourself, but to watch other people go through and have those reactions. So yeah, we talk about drug use a lot. Yeah, we talk about a lot of the negativities that we're experiencing, but that's because we're experiencing them right now. And we're trying to,
cope with it.
Exactly. And it's, whether you agree with that coping mechanism is up to you. That's not my prerogative. But, you look at someone like Lil Peep, and even if his music didn't particularly resonate with me, I know so many people that if they didn't have that music, they would have killed themselves. They would have overdosed. They would have continued overusing drugs. It's almost like it's like two negatives make a positive. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's like you see someone that's like, yeah, there's kids that are going to abuse shit because they see people glorifying it, but your generation glorified a whole bunch of shit too. And every generation has its bad and its good eggs, and people that take things the wrong way and that can't separate fiction from reality or their life from someone else's. There's actually
Peep was an extremely talented songwriter.
He was, and so was X, and he was a perfect example of people that weren't putting out completely finished products and still managing to outsell some major artists with incredible quality production behind them. And I'm working on this song right now that's coming out that's about that whole topic. It looks fun to do this shit. Like, we make it look fun. I go out and party. I go to the club. I'm there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night promoting artists or going to shows for myself or just getting fucked up. But sometimes it's not fun. You know what I mean? And we have to figure that out for ourselves. No 40-year-old is going to tell us that.
Yeah, no, man. Drug abuse and experiences, they're not something you can teach someone. I know that personally from experience because, my parents were like in NA when I was a year old, and they went to the program. So when I was probably like 11 and I found out what weed was for the first time, and my parents were like, no, you cannot go near that. You can't touch it. You have to stay away from it. And they tried to teach me everything they could to not use it. I'm like the biggest chronic I've ever met in my whole fucking life now. Yeah. Like it had the opposite effect. No matter how much they wanted, they could not have taught me anything about drugs. I had to go learn it on my own and make all the mistakes myself. And it was just a life lesson for me,
And sometimes you see, sometimes you need to see the examples of what people look like. I look at Golden BSP as a perfect example of this. You know what I mean? He plays the image of that, and I don't really listen to his music, so I can't really speak to if it resonates or if that's the subject matter that he crosses over. But I look at that and I look, there's a successful guy, but that's not me. I have no intention of ever being like that or replicating that image, even if I might enjoy the music. I like some of Juice's music, but I don't intend on going and swallowing 20 Percocets.
Right.
And carrying guns around and all that stuff, like actively in my daily life doing dumb shit like that. You know what I mean? You are capable of separating those things. And I think that we need to allow people to go those creative routes and talk about that subject matter, because if we stop talking about it, that's where we're going to start seeing real problems. Yeah, no, I agree with you that, hiding away from the issues, it's not gonna. And it's like you need to make them larger than life. You know what I mean? For people to understand them, you need to exaggerate. Otherwise, people don't care. Yeah. Like, I wonder if when I was 11, if I had been, engulfed in this music, that if I had known how much that, because I've had so many experiences, with ecstasy and with coke and with, not so much with heroin and oxy and pills and stuff, because I was a younger generation. I wasn't really like, we were more, mushrooms and acid and like party drugs and stuff. Yeah, stuff you could get from a dealer, not your pharmacist. Yeah, and the medicine cabinet, we stayed away from that because we were like, this shit'll kill you. Right. But it feels almost kind of like drugs. Like if I had known how much of an effect they could have on me in the future when I was a child, maybe I would have stayed away. Because I had a lot of people telling me they're going to ruin your life, but I just didn't believe them. And you need to see it. It's like you need to see it in depth. And music, you can really get so in depth. Yeah. And in a very short amount of time. I've watched some of my idols die. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people that people have compared me to die. And it's like, even if you've never met this person, it's a super sobering experience. It's eye-opening. Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I agree with you that if we just kind of like, it's not that we're glorifying it, but if we didn't shine the light on this situation at all, it's just going to repeat itself because the drugs are there. And I think that's the thing is it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there, but you can't close the door on the subject. You need to talk about it. Yeah. Big time. You got any more notes down? Or is that no, that's it for the notes on addressing everything. Word, brother. Well, it's been a good podcast. We'll of course figure out all the mixing, editing, get her online and shoot her up. Of course. Appreciate you coming out. Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to be on here with you. Yeah. If anything you want to say to the fans? Last thing is just I've definitely got one project coming this year, but it's going to be more for my my pop fans. So if you like some of the more acoustic stuff that I do, you're definitely going to enjoy this one. But we've started work on my full length project. That's going to be a little bit more of the modern kind of hip hoppy R&B music. So damn, that's awesome. I look forward to it. Stay tuned for some of the previews for that one. Yeah, can't wait to hear it, brother. Cheers, guys. Peace.
Yo, what up? This is My Name is Jump.
Hey, I'm Dylan Bell with Log Files Media.
Yo, this is Lil Turtle.
This is Lil Sparka.
What's going on? It's your boy Hooper turned singer.
Yo, what's up? This is JML.
This is Natty Snaps. Yo, it's Kairos on the BC Underground Hip Hop Podcast.
BC Underground Hip Hop Podcast.
BC Underground Hip Hop.
Listen to BC Underground Hip Hop Podcast.
Love for Salty, motherfucker.
Turtle Gang.
Kairos season, baby.
Get it because you need it.
Watching this, y'all are my people, bro.
Wow.